Shopping is hard, right? But there's a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And she sends just for me pieces. Plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what I love and send back the rest. It's so easy. Personal styling for everyone. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
So when I see a value that says accountability, the option is not being accountable, which to me is not a viable option. If I want my employees to be more innovative, it's not be innovative or not innovative. We have to think about like innovative or efficient. Like, do you want me to be more efficient? Do you want me to make choices faster? Or do you want me to sit with that decision?
Welcome to Season 4 of the Manage Self, Lead Others podcast with Nina Sunday, CSP, for experienced and aspiring people managers. This show helps you explore ways to become a more intentional leader. Each episode, host Nina Sunday speaks with some of the brightest business minds on the planet who share a passion to elevate and transform team culture. Workplace culture hides in plain sight. Is yours flourishing? Join the movement to make your workplace a better place to work. Are you ready? Because it's time to manage self, lead others.
My VIP guest is Josh Levine, professor, author and speaker on the power of corporate culture and communication, adjunct professor at Design Strategy MBA course, California College of the Arts. He's a contributing writer to Fast Company and Forbes magazines, host of the podcast Great Mondays Radio for candid conversations with culture leaders, and author of the great book, Great Mondays, How to Design a Company Culture Employees Love. Welcome, Josh Levine.
Thank you. That's high praise. I appreciate that.
Well, it set off a few light bulbs in my head, so we're going to dig deep into that. But I've already done the intro to say that you also have Great Mondays Radio podcast. So tell us a little bit about that before we delve into the book.
I'm so passionate about company culture, and I continue to run into people who don't really leaders who don't really understand the power of culture as a business driver. And that was really why I decided to jump in with 2 feet. I want to highlight, get out there, stories about executives who have succeeded and understand and can articulate the value of company culture in business, using company culture as a business tool, right? A rigorous business tool. And there just isn't enough, there's not enough stories, there's not enough of that out there. And so that's why I have invested in starting and running Great Mondays Radio as a podcast. We have weekly episodes, and I invite business leaders who are culture advocates, those who are in the business, lots of HR folks, lots of folks outside of HR as well, who really believe in the power of company culture and help them tell those stories. And then I also like to investigate what are some of the trends and patterns that they're seeing in the world, and what in talent management and strategic innovation and a lot of those other topics that feed into it. And it's really been a wonderful addition to my a long list of to-dos, but I enjoy doing it tremendously. So thank you for asking.
I thought I'd ask with some of the questions that you ask in the book, which is, how do you define culture?
Yeah, great. It's a great place to start. So this was the question that launched me onto my culture journey. I started as a brand strategist in Silicon Valley. And when I realized that most organizations that we were creating these brand promises for couldn't deliver on those brand promises, it led me to this question: how do we engage those employees And very quickly learned that it was, people would call it company culture. Now, the problem with that is that that a lot of folks think about company culture as this fuzzy cloud of, nice to haves. For me, what I realized is that culture is such an important component, such an important piece of business. It is all about behaviors. And so my definition is it's the cause and effect of every decision that an organization makes or that every employee makes. Decisions big and small. It's when you think about how people treat one another, how they're able to communicate honestly, whether they have trust, how they're working together, whether they're willing to be vulnerable, whether they're willing to pick up some extra, work that someone else on their team, couldn't get to. These are all things that are going to cause somebody else to choose a certain path or another. And so if you're treated poorly or not trusted, then you might then feel bad about that. And also, well, I'm not going to give back very much if an organization doesn't trust me. So that's the sort of the element that I'm trying to raise with my definition is this cause and effect component. It's a cycle. It's a holistic system.
Absolutely. And of course, I talk to some groups about psychological safety, which is really the real subtle things like not using sarcasm or belittling or making judgments or blaming people if they make a mistake. These are all the subtle things that sometimes people just, if they're on the receiving end, they just accept because they go, oh, it's too petty to complain about. But actually, over time, it can be death by 1,000 cuts.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It is, I was just at a conference and someone was talking about the little pinches and they said, well, most people don't bring it up because it's not worth it. You're like, and then the question was, well, what's not worth it? The relationship, the work, and it's the amount of energy. And if you reframe it as like, you think, oh, all right, I don't want to stop the conversation or like, I don't want to insult them or, but really what you're looking for or what you get to resolve is you're like, hey, when you said that, I didn't love the way that felt. And so it's really about conflict and confrontation. And if you're able to build that trust and address those pinch points, it becomes, it actually moves in the other direction. It's trust building.
I actually love that little thing you just said. When you said that, I didn't love how I felt. That is such an easy thing to say, and it's not insulting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, often I got stopped in the past because I didn't know what to say. And I thought, oh, it's too petty, and they'll act as if I'm complaining about nothing. But I realize over time, it used to get to me. Because the behavior would continue, because the behavior you accept is the behavior you condone.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. That's another aspect, another way to think about culture.
So your book is organized along the lines of 6 components mapped out, most of them mapped out as activities. And in fact, that's why this book is so important. It's a field guide. You can actually follow the instructions. I sort of printed off this one because I had the PDF. Values quick start. And of course, those of you who are listening, you won't see that I'm showing up some printouts, but it's actually mapping out how you can work with your people to either do a quick start with values, a quick start with purpose, and all of them. It's really well designed. Good on you. As we
I
say
appreciate
in Australia.
that. Yeah. I have a lot of years of working with clients to help them define these aspects. And for me, I know that I could come up with some ingenious answer to, or, supply them with some cool values or an amazing purpose. But when you are able to create it yourself, you're going to own it and it's going to be more resonant and more true. And so instead of, I explain how powerful values are and then I share there's some other ways that we can create these together.
So you do say that values, you should cap them at 5. 3 to
Yes,
5.
that's the maximum. The least I've ever gotten an organization down to is three. So that's my rule,
Yeah.
3 to 5
Yeah.
values. Now, here's what is so important. So one, of course, we're talking about bits of information that we can keep in our heads. Okay,
Yeah.
that's one thing, right? So that's like, we got frameworks, we got things, I got the quarterly reports, I got all these things that I have to keep as an employee in my head. So how can I remember, 9 different values? How am I supposed to apply them? Okay, so that's absolutely an immediate value. That's why we want to do it that way. However, the other reason is that it forces a prioritization. And while most leaders talk a good game about prioritizing, and it's something that we've all learned a long time ago in every business school, and we learn at it, still not good at it. And so by putting that cap on, I'm going to say to you, yes, all these things that you have said are wonderful. And I know that you want everybody to be accountable. And I know that you want everybody to be innovative, but you can't have all of them, because if you have all of them, none of them are true. And so that is, I try, not always successful, but I try to force leaders to make, to prioritize what is the most important. And the difference between how values have been done in the past and how a lot of organizations do values and the way that I do values is that I encourage my clients that I work with and the organizations that I speak to think about their values as the 3 to 5 behaviors that are going to move the needle in the next 2 to 3 years.
Very good. And can you give us an example of what is a current trend in those 3 key words, or is it keywords rather than a short phrase?
Here's where I start, which is a strategic decision, you well know, is going to be a decision where option A and option B are both viable.
Right.
They're both possible. So when I see a value that says accountability, the option is not being accountable, which to me is not a viable option. I want to know that I have something I can look at and say, I have a choice, between X and Y. So if I want if I want my employees to be more innovative, it's not be innovative or not innovative. We have to think about like innovative or efficient. Like, do you want me to be more efficient? Do you want me to make choices faster? Or do you want me to sit with that decision? And then it's not, it becomes a choice between things that are completely fine. There are some organizations that are profitable and make their money because they become very efficient. And there's some organizations that are great because they're very extremely innovative. And innovation requires time and kind of unstructured thinking time and experimenting and lots of failures. And so that's great. Those are 2 options.
Well, look, I want to get on to one of the other 6 components that you've mentioned. The first in your book is purpose, and we've done a deep dive into values, and we have been talking about behaviors because it's the result of every choice. But I did want to get on to recognition. Tell us about the 4 types of recognition. And what I liked was actually your little,
chart?
I printed these ones out too.
Yeah, good.
You've got these wonderful summary.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Listener,
lovely.
if you're not watching on YouTube, you should check it out, because she's got all the different all the different images printed out.
They could be a poster.
Yeah, well,
poster.
it is. I think you have the hardback, right? The hardback has a poster on the inside, actually, of the cover. Gosh, recognition. Everybody has experience with recognition in some capacity or another, right? Like, we all kind of know that. The problem is that most recognition isn't
That's that one. Yeah.
Tied, there you go, isn't tied to a particular behavior. And it's, if you think about, there's sort of there's two kinds of recognition that we know. One is like the sales award. So you're rewarding outputs. And so it's like, how many widgets can you sell? And the problem with that is that if you're rewarding the output, well, guess what? The how you can skip over that. You can skip over how is, I know plenty of sales people who would go out and lie, cheat, and steal to sell more because they're being recognized for that. So that's number one, is we need to be recognizing the how, not the what. The other is sort of the President's Award. That would be another, like, whoever I think did the best job this year. What does that mean? Who cares? There's no strategy behind that. And so what you need to do, and the reason why values are important, is because you build the rest of the components on that. And you need to reward and recognize values-driven behaviors. So that's my kind of thesis on recognition. And that way, you don't just have people going, oh, well, maybe I won, maybe I didn't. It's, oh, I see. You want us to do more, reflect back on, innovation or whatever it is. I'm going to reward you, even if you didn't come up with a great idea. Nina had the most failures this year. And that was amazing because she tried and experimented, and that was incredible, right? And so now you're going to show everybody else, oh, that's okay.
Yeah, Josh, that's great, because what gets measured gets valued.
Yes, exactly.
And gets improved as well. So
that's right, exactly. So so that's the kind of the treatise, right? So that's the first part. So then you're asking about, there's the 4 kinds of recognition. So I have a 2x2, and I'll just do my best to describe it. If you can't, if you want to see a version of it, you can just go to my website. There's plenty of free downloads and PDFs at greatmondays.com. There's a lot of free stuff there. You can absolutely find it. But here, let me describe it to you. It's a 2x2. So the top half are what we call formal recognition, and the bottom half are informal. So formal recognition are programs that the company as a whole will facilitate. Informal are those that your team might do, but the team next to you might not. It's something that just kind of happens informally. So that's the top and the bottom. Now the left and the right. Left is from, so the left and right sides are from whom. And so on the left you have from leaders, so someone who is above you, and the right is from peers, those who are at the same level as you. And so what we have then is this 2x2, where the top left corner is formal from leadership. That is, and I've drawn a picture of like a first place ribbon. That's going to be that once a year, like I said, could be the President's Award, but it has to be tied to your values. But it's this big grand gesture that maybe your manager or your someone in your executive suite is going to award a team or an individual formal from leadership. So that's that kind. Now we were going to work our way around the 2x2, and we're going to go clockwise. We're going to go clockwise. So then top right is formal from your peers. So what that is, that's where you're going to find all of those software services that allow you to give a thumbs up to other colleagues, to mention them on your Slack channel. I had a client who actually implemented a really cool software program where they can mention someone on the channel and then hashtag the value, and the value would populate, and then that would get projected across the office on some of the monitors, and then it would actually get recorded into their HR file. So really, yeah. And so you can see how often they were being recognized for that particular value. So that's going to be a peer-to-peer one. I've got a couple other examples of that. Now, bottom right-hand corner, peer informal. So informal from peer-to-peer, that's something that's going to just happen naturally on your team. Now, the story I tell in the book is about the bacon pillow that used to get passed around at the Zappos spinoff, Delivering Happiness. The small team, when they were first getting started, someone had a bacon pillow, and it was, whatever, these silly little rituals pop up. And at the end of every week, they would say, who's been living those values the best? And they would just hand the pillow. No financial value, doesn't really matter. The award is you get to hand the bacon pillow to someone else the next week. So that's great. That totally works. That'll work just as well. And then finally, bottom left-hand corner, this is going to be informal from leadership. I drew a little coffee cup there. So what I encourage, managers and leaders to do is, hey, take your team member out for coffee. Thank you, and to thank them for something that they did. And that becomes this, the coffee is whatever, even if the most expensive coffee is only going to be whatever it is, $8, $10. And so, but that's not, that is an insignificant amount of money. The value comes from, hey, let me spend some time with you.
And that's also a ritual as well, isn't it?
It is a ritual.
That's another one of the components.
Jumping up to the next one, right? Yeah. Rituals. And I do say that sometimes the rituals will overlap. Rituals are how we build relationships. So, you can see how the components are kind of overlapping. And that informal from leaders is a really powerful way to just say, hey, pat on the back. Right? A pat on the back. Thanks for doing that. We really appreciate it. And the power is there's the power dynamic. And so if you're my manager and you're like, hey, I'm going to stop you just for a second. That was really amazing the way you did that, connected to value, C, whatever it might be. And that becomes really a powerful tool. I would used to joke that the walls of the business are becoming more porous. There's not even walls. We're not going into the office very often, or maybe the office changes. We'll go to the cafe. We'll go to the WeWork or whatever it might be. And, that's where it is. That's what's happening. And so that's, all of the traditional structures and strictures are gone. So what should replace that? It's how we work with one another. That's why I think culture is so important. That's why it's emerging as such a powerful tool. It is the implicit agreement about how a business works.
Josh Levine, this has been a wonderful exploration into the ideas in your book, and we've come to the end of our time. But I do believe you've got a it can all be in the show notes, but you've got a web page where people can download some freebies. So do you want to tell us about, is it greatmondays.com?
Yep, greatmondays.com. And in that you can find, I believe it's /classroom. You can find that. You can find all of the, where you can download all of the exercises that we just discussed. Right. And you can also check out on greatmondays.com. You can find a link to the podcast as well as a link to purchase the book.
This episode, I was speaking with Josh Levine, author of Great Mondays, and with the Great Mondays radio podcast and the greatmondays.com website with lots of freebies. Do go there, download the freebies and the culture information that he's got there. And this is the Manage Self Lead Others podcast for experienced and aspiring managers to elevate their leadership and transform culture by keeping up to date with trends in self-leadership and leading people. My name is Nina Sunday, CSP. See you next time. Ciao for now.
Nina Sunday CSP is on a mission to help leaders transform culture. Nina Sunday travels from Brisbane, Australia to facilitate half-day or full-day workshops at your location anywhere across Australia. For a list of Nina's topics around leading people, productivity and communication, go to brainpowertraining.com.au/signature programs to request a tailored proposal. To book Nina Sunday CSP to speak at your conference in Australia, New Zealand, Asia or internationally, head to ninasunday.com for details.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.